Huawei has just surprised the world again by launching its Pure 70 Ultra model. This is the top of its range, although it obviously also comes accompanied by little brothers. But let me tell you about the specifications of this model because it has the most impressive thing you can imagine. At the design level, we see something very attractive because of its faux leather finish with a very striking pattern and a triangular camera module with rounded corners and a small tab to place the flash. And the Xmage brand, which is the brand that Huawei currently handles for its camera, as remember that they are not currently working with Leica but created their own brand. And something striking is that this camera is retractable. So when you open the camera application, the lens is going to protrude through two motors. But despite having this retractable system, it maintains the IP68 certification against water and dust. At the front, we will find Kunlun glass in the second generation. And pay close attention because if the first generation Kunlun glass had already seemed very surprising for its resistance against falls, this second generation is 100% more resistant than the first generation and 300% more resistant against scratches. So we are definitely talking about a very important improvement to protect the screen of this device. This screen is 6.8 inches OLED with a resolution of 2844 by 1260 pixels. That is superior to Full HD+. And its refresh rate goes up to 120 Hz, but it is capable of going down to 1. We're also going to appreciate 1440 Hz in its dimming rate to have a very comfortable viewing, and it reaches 460 pixels per inch. So we are in front of a spectacular screen that also seems to have very well used the entire front because the bezels are exaggeratedly thin. For the front camera, we will find 13 megapixels with f-aperture 2.4. So it is not so bright, but it is an ultra-wide camera as we are used to Huawei throughout the series that was previously P and now is Pure. This front camera also has autofocus and obviously will be able to record video in 4K. But the most surprising thing without a doubt are the cameras on the back. In this Ultra model, Huawei has put all its technological development in these cameras. So the main camera will be 50 megapixels with a 1-inch sensor. And this is the retractable camera which also has variable aperture from f1.6 to f4.0. So we could easily say that this is the most advanced camera on the market today within smartphones, as it also has stabilization features. Then we will find the ultra-wide camera with 40 megapixels and f2.2 aperture. And finally, a telephoto camera that has been called super concentrated of 50 megapixels with f-aperture 2.1 and optical stabilization. This aperture is totally surprising since most manufacturers in their telephoto lens have apertures around f2.6 or f2.5. But Huawei goes to f2.1, and as you know, in aperture, the smaller the number means a lot more illumination comes in. And to talk about a telephoto lens, we're really talking about some pretty amazing technology on Huawei's part. This lens has an approximate 3.5x optical zoom, and it is capable of reaching a maximum digital zoom of 100x. And Huawei boasts that this camera has high motion capture capabilities, as they showed a video where the device is able to capture a vehicle passing by at 300 kilometers per hour, and the picture still comes out with very good clarity. So again, Huawei surprises a lot in the capabilities that this device has. To be exact, it's a 90mm lens, and it's not only going to serve you for zooming, but also for macro scenes because it has those capabilities of maintaining a focus for small objects. So it would have a 35x magnification for these tiny object shots. And again, it would show what great capabilities this camera has, which is completely versatile. It's got everything you need. It has a 5200 milliamp battery, and in conjunction with its 100-watt charger, it promises a very interesting charging speed. It also supports 80 watts wireless charging and 20 watts reversible charging. This would be another very noteworthy aspect because usually the reversible charging of various devices is a mere 5 watts. At best, I had seen it was 10 watts, but Huawei keeps upping the quality and now it goes up to 20 watts. And if you do not know what reversible charging is, it is this ability of mobile devices to charge another cell phone on its back or some other accessory that supports wireless charging. In China, this device also has two-way satellite communication, meaning you can send and receive emergency messages even if you don't have coverage from your phone company. It supports Wi-Fi 6 networks, has NFC, its USB port is 3.1 of first generation, and comes with Harmony OS 4.2 with some new features in the lock screen to customize with different animations, and is also able to recognize gestures with the palm to do some actions within the cell phone. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and there is a version with 512 gigabytes of storage and another version that goes up to a terabyte. The price of the simplest model announced for China is 9,999 yuan. It is more or less $1,380, but remember very well that prices here are not the same as over there. It is not yet confirmed that Huawei will distribute globally this Ultra model, and honestly, I see it unlikely. Remember that this Ultra model comes to replace the RT series that was presented with the P60, and that model was only distributed in China, so it seems that Huawei still does not have sufficient capacity to distribute these advanced devices worldwide for all the restrictions that the United States put in the supply chain. By the way, the processor is the new Kirin 9010. Huawei has not officially communicated this processor, but since this device already went on sale and in fact already sold out in just a minute in China, several users were already able to open applications to test this processor and begin to leave the first results. So this processor has 12 cores. 2 of the most powerful cores run at 2.3 GHz, another 6 cores run at 2.18 GHz, and 4 cores run at 1.55 GHz. The GPU is the Malion 910, made by Huawei as well, and in early benchmarks it has been reported that in single core it reaches 1,447 points, and in multi-core it reaches 4,765 points within Geekbench, while in Antutu it reaches 979,511 points, so it is a fairly competitive processor, although I do not think it is the most powerful today. But we must remember that it is a very important achievement that Huawei has been able to develop this processor without US technology. So little by little they are improving in this section that was one of the weakest points. Of course, the device has support for 5G networks as well, but it is not the only device that Huawei presented. Huawei has also just introduced the Huawei Pure 70 Pro Plus. This device is a step below the Ultra model but offers very competitive specifications as well. The screen is the same as the Ultra model, even also with the second generation of Kunlun glass, which makes it super resistant, but in this case the battery drops to 5,050 milliamps. But it still supports 100 watts charging via cable, 80 watts wirelessly, and 20 watts reversible charging. It also maintains level IP68 in water protection, but the most important change will be in the camera. The main camera will be 50 megapixels with variable aperture and optical stabilization, but the ultra-wide camera drops to 12.5 megapixels with the same aperture, while the telephoto camera is 48 megapixels, but it is still with f-aperture 2.1 and optical zoom 3.5x. It also maintains the macro capabilities, so it is definitely a photographic system that also looks powerful. For the front camera, we also have the 13 megapixels with ultra-wide camera, f-aperture 2.4 and autofocus. The rest of the specifications are very similar, having 16 gigabytes of RAM and 2 versions, one with 512 gigabytes of storage and another with 1 terabyte. The simplest model has an announced price for China of 7,999 yuan, although remember that prices here are not the same as over there. Also launched was the Huawei Pura 70 Pro, which the truth is very similar to the Pro Plus model, having as the only notable difference the RAM, which in this case will be only 12 gigabytes, which is a very good capacity anyway. And obviously the color availability is also going to be different between the Pro Plus model and the Pro model, as the Pro model has a plain back cover, while the Pro Plus has a bit more advanced decoration. The most basic edition has 12 gigabytes of RAM with 256 gigabytes of storage at an advertised price for China of 6,499 yuan, although remember that prices here are not the same as over there. There is also an edition with 512 gigabytes of storage and another edition with 1 terabyte. But now finally, let's talk about the Huawei Pura 70, the most basic model. This one has the same design essence of its siblings, but it looks a bit simpler on its back cover with finishes in different colors, completely smooth. It weighs 207 grams, so it is lighter than all its siblings, and it is also thinner, having a thickness of 7.95 millimeters. Its screen is 6.6 inches, so it is also smaller, but it retains the same technology that we saw in its older siblings. Also, with the second generation Kunlun glass protection, we will find 12 gigabytes of RAM and versions of 256 or 512 gigabytes of storage and a terabyte also as the maximum option. The main camera is also 50 megapixels with variable aperture f 1.4 to f 4.0 and also optical stabilization. We also have the 13 megapixel ultra-wide camera with f2.2 aperture, and finally a periscope camera that, unlike its bigger brothers, has 5x optical zoom. So curiously, it has more optical zoom than the top models, but it has less aperture, in this case reaching f3.4, but maintaining optical stabilization. So in this case, we are talking about a 125mm lens with very good capabilities as well. But having smaller aperture, definitely that the behavior is not going to be as spectacular in low light conditions. The front camera is 13 megapixels with f aperture 2.4, just like all his brothers, and the battery reaches 4,900 milliamps, supporting charging 66 watts via cable. It also supports 50-watt wireless charging and 7.5-watt reversible wireless charging, so it's simple unlike the more advanced models, but fortunately it maintains IP68, so it's a high-end device, although it's very noticeable that Huawei is saving the best for the top models. A global launch of any of these devices is not yet confirmed, so let's wait. I would love it if the Huawei Pure 70 Ultra does get a global release because that photo system looks exaggeratedly attractive. I'd love to be able to try it out.